Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the last session in the mini-series of Success Blocks, focusing on adoption. My name is Rafit. Again, I'm sure I met most of you in the last few webinars we had or face-to-face, but if not, nice to meet all of you. I'm running product for Totango, focusing on delivering all the solution that will make your engagement with customers more impactful and more useful. In today's sessions, I would like to focus on adoption success block. In the last two sessions, we covered Spark best practices for onboarding and Spark best practices for escalation, which I hope were helpful. In a few minutes, we will share some more questions in regards to the effectiveness of those webinars, whether you got the right level of details. Feel free to share these details with us through the questions area in the series or to the polls that will be delivered in a few minutes. So what's the plan for today? What we would like to focus on is a little bit on adoption best practices, and again, reminding everyone where you can find it on Totango website, which is available for all of you, and you can go in and just find adoption best practices as well as onboarding best practices and escalation best practices, which we covered in the last meetings. And then going to Totango and configuring together adoption success block, seeing how you can leverage all the capabilities that the tool provide in order to configure quickly and arrange your adoption efforts. So just before we'll start, to make sure we are all aligned on what are we trying to achieve, Totango is focusing on accelerating the customer success economy. Our belief is that in a digital world in which all of us live at, the customer is the one that sits on the driver's seat, and we enable companies to center around the customer, to drive the customer growth, and to enable the customer success. We believe that with Totango Spark, you will be able to leverage those capabilities by focusing on results and not just on a list of activities with Totango Spark. So let's drill down a little bit to what we would like to cover today. And as I mentioned, we will be focusing today on adoption. So one of the things that I always start with when we are looking on those webinars is what am I interested to achieve by my onboarding effort? And when we are looking on onboarding, onboarding is in fact the place where most customers are spending their time. We would like to make sure that customers are using the product and the solution and are actually seeing the value by using it. We would like to make sure that customers are getting the right value that they are looking for, and this will benefit us eventually to get a higher retention rate and higher customer satisfaction. As a manager, I would like to focus on three main things when I'm looking on my customer adoption. The first one is that customers are using the product, actually enjoying the value that we are providing them. The second one is that customers are getting value from existing functionality and new functionality that we are delivering them. And the last one is maintaining good and trust relationship with our customers. As I mentioned a minute ago, adoption is where the customer spends most of his life in a way, or most of the time, and would like to make sure that during this whole time frame, the customer enjoys the product, gets the value, and has a very good relationship with us. If we are looking a little bit on the customer life cycle, we covered onboarding on the left, where customers usually start in the last webinar. This webinar, we will be focusing on adoption. As you can see, this is where the customers start to leverage the product, and we can actually grow the customer. Successful engagement and successful work as part of the adoption activity will lead to an upsell or renewal with the customer, which is basically what we are driving for. Unsuccessful engagements or customers that is not getting the right value from the product may result in canceled accounts. And we would like to make sure that our customers will go from growing to upsell and renewal opportunity. But you can see from this diagram, just pointing about the fact that adoption is where the customer spends most of his time, and this is where we should make sure that we are focusing our efforts. So if we'll go back to Totango best practices just before we drill down to that. So as last time, under solutions, you have list of success block, onboarding, escalation, adoption, and renewal, and we keep adding more value over there. If you go to the adoption success block, you will be able to see all the data that will be covered today, the goals, the segment, the best practices that we are suggesting. What I want to focus today is actually take those best practices and take those goals and configure them within Totango and show you how easy is it leveraging Totango success blocks. So let's open Totango, and I just created before this session an adoption success block. You can see it here on the left side. The adoption success block is already aligned with or assigned to a success flow that is called adoption. I have a mutual alignment between the success block and the success flow. Now, what I need to do is to start and configure the goals and the KPIs that will enable me to make sure that my company is focusing on onboarding and achieving the goals that that I referred to as a manager a minute ago. I'll start by defining the segments that I need to have in order to drive for a successful adoption. As most of us are already managing our customers, and customer success efforts is not something that is completely new for us, I do have some of the segments ready under the tools section. So if I'll go to the tools section under best practices adoption, I can see the specific segments that we are using as part of our adoption efforts within our customers. I'll mark all of them, and I'll make sure all of those will be available for me within the adoption success block. So I'll just move all of those to adoption success block. And as you can see now, I have all of them in adoption success block. So basically, I have all the segments. I can look who are customers that are currently in adoption phase. I can see specific customers and their utilization for the solution. And I can now go ahead and leverage those segments in order to make sure that my scorecard presents what's the status of my company in terms of adoption. So I'll go to the scorecard, and I'll start by creating goals and KPIs. The first goal that we talked about was I would like to make sure that customers are actually using the product. So my goal will be customers using. My goal will be that customers are using the product functionality. This will be my goal. And I'll measure it by license utilization and by daily active users of customers. So the first one that I'll do here will be a KPI to look what is the daily active users for each one of my accounts. And the metric I'll choose is DAU versus MAU. I'll look on average. And the segments of customers that I'll choose over here will be adoption customers. And I can actually choose a trend graph if I want to see the trend of those metrics. I can go ahead and choose any segment that I have in my customer base. So for example, here I chose my top customers in the last 30 days, and the target that I'll have is I want to ensure that there is 60% usage of daily active users. So now when I'll have this KPI, and it will appear here in a minute, I can go ahead and configure additional KPIs. So the second one, and I'm sorry, I think that I didn't save it while configuring it, so I'll do it quickly again. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I haven't saved it before. So we'll go ahead and we'll continue with the goals that we were discussing. Another goal that was important for me to understand was customers are using, getting value from new functionality. So here, I'll define my goal. And I want to ensure that every new feature that I have, customers are using. The new feature that I was just that my company just released is mobile application. So I want to ensure usage, high usage of mobile application. I'll define that as a trend line as well. My metric will be mobile usage, because this is what I want to measure. I'll look again on average and on my top customers, as I just did before. I look at the trend daily, and I want to ensure that customers, that I have more than 5 customers using it on a daily basis. So I can see that now I have these metrics as well. And the last item that I want to focus on is making sure that I have, that I'm maintaining good relationship with my customers. Now, this capability can be measured, by multiple things. I can measure good relationship by ongoing QBR and their feedback. I can measure good relationship by ongoing NPS that I'm getting from my customers. There are many ways, and in each company, to measure good relationship with customers. I can measure that by engagement, the amount of engagement that I have with my customers. In this case, what I'll do is I'll leverage the NPS score as the metric that will help me measure that. But again, many companies might see here different goals, different KPIs that they can leverage as part of that. Okay, so I've defined another goal. So now I have my goal set up. As just to make it clear, I can go ahead and define additional KPIs to those items. So it's not that I have only one KPI for each item. I can go ahead and define multiple KPIs for each one of those items. For example, if I'm looking on customer maintaining good relationship, I can define that also by health, because one of my metrics in the company to define good relationship is to look on the health of the customers and make sure that the health is actually good health. So I can go ahead here and define another KPI that's represented by health of customer. And then define what's the health score as the metric that I want to look at. And the segment that I will be look at is top customers again. And I'll have another KPI. So one of the capabilities that Spark provide is the ability to define not only multiple goals, but also multiple KPIs that are representative of each one of those goals. That's up to you and your company. How many do you want to create? In general, when you will be looking on our best practices, you will see that we are usually suggesting between 2 or 3 KPIs for each one of the goals, to measure each one of the goals. And the reason for that is if you'll have too many KPIs, it will be hard for you to track what actually is leading to the goal. And as I mentioned before, we would like to make sure that in Spark, we are focusing on the goal itself. So this is in regards to configuring the scorecards. So I have the scorecard configured in Totango already, and now I can go ahead and continue my work. Just as a comment, feel free to post any question you have during the session, and I'll refer to them while we are moving forward and at the end of this session. We already configured the list of segments that I would like to look at. I have specific reports that I already created that are adoption reports and license utilization. If I have additional reports that were created in the past but wasn't part of this success block, you can again go ahead, mark those reports, and move them to the adoption success block. So one of the key values that you are getting with Spark is not only leveraging your company best practices and position those in the product, but also leveraging all the assets that you already created in the past and being able to organize them under the relevant success block to drive the required behavior. Next item is assets, where you would like to make sure that a company sees and understands the best practices of the company for adoption. I already have 2 documents here that I know I would like to address. I'll look for those and I'll upload them to Totango. So I have here QBR guidelines and customer engagement tips. These are 2 documents that I believe will be very relevant for my company when they're doing their adoption efforts with their customers. So I'll make sure those assets are here and aligned with the success block. Just to remind everyone, you have the ability to upload assets to a specific success block to drive best practices in regards to that success block in the success block assets area. You also have the ability to upload specific assets to a specific account or to a specific customer. This is one of the questions that repeated itself a few times in the earlier, in the last webinar that we had. What's the difference between an asset that is being uploaded to a specific account versus an asset that is uploaded to a success block? And this is the difference. Here I would upload documents that I would like to keep on the success block area, where I usually share best practices of adoption with my customers, versus assets that are uploaded to a specific customers, where I'll usually have contracts or meeting summaries with these specific customers. So I know right now what are the different goals that I would like to ensure. I know how do I want to measure them, leveraging the different KPIs. But now I need to define how am I going to engage and how do I going to drive the right activities with my customers. And the people that are helping me driving that from the organization are my CSM team and my sales team, specifically for adoption success block. So the first thing that I want to do is create a success block that will make sure that I'm engaged with those customers. Now, there are a few things that might affect the experience that customers are getting during their adoption phase. One of them might be when a key contact leaves the company. Another one might be a support storm, when the customer has many escalations that are going with the customer at the same time, and we would like to ensure that the customer is still feeling the trust to our company. So let's define those success plays. So one of the success plays will be maintaining customer trust while we're working with them. And this is something that we always want to make sure that we maintain customer trust, especially if something happened that may change that a little bit. And for example, my belief is that if a customer is happy and he had more than 2 support cases in the last period of time, that might change the way customers are looking and observing here's a relationship with the company. So I'll say that if I had more than 2 support cases, I would like to make sure that I'm engaging with the customers. So what are the tasks that I would like to make sure that I'm taking care of? First of all, I would like to escalate customer issues. So and this is a task for the success manager, and it will be driven by one of our best practices persons here. And I would like to make sure that he's escalating the problem in one day. Then I want to make sure that at the same day, he also run a problem solving session. So we will know exactly what caused the issue. And then after doing it, I want to make sure that he's also engaging with the relevant people in order to drive a solution for those activities. Okay, I can always go back and attach for him specific documents if I believe there are best practices that will help him engage with the customer. Now, after defining the success block, I can go ahead and activate it, and this success block will be active. This will enable me maintain ongoing customer, good relationship with the customer to make sure that the customer at any point in time support our relationship and has the right trust with the customer. Another thing that I want to make sure that the customer success manager is doing is, for example, increased adoption of a specific feature. So I can go ahead and create another success play for that as well. Again, looking on the time, we won't have time to do it right now, but you can find all the details within Totango website. And last thing is, as part of the adoption phase, I want to make sure that the customer is getting ongoing communication from my company. So not only through the CSMs, and not only communication that the CSMs are triggering because of a specific activity or trigger that happened. I also want to make sure that I'm sending in ongoing campaigns as part of the work with that specific customers. I know that I already have some campaigns within the tools, so I'll go ahead and I'll leverage one of those campaigns. What you can see in this example is feature usage email that is going to customers. This is based on Totango Success Baked functionality, where you can schedule campaigns to customers, for example, on a monthly basis, that provide the customers visibility to how much they were using a specific feature. So I'll go ahead and move this adoption campaign . to the adoption, to the campaign area within the adoption success block. I can go ahead right now and just change the campaign or add any functionality that I would like to have as part of it. Another campaign that I would like to make sure that I have as part of adoption is Reengagement Campaign. I know that if the customer didn't log into the product for a week or 2 weeks, it's too long. It might be that the customer is traveling and he's out of vacation, but if not logging to Totango for 2 weeks might reflect some kind of an issue with the product or with the person itself. We want to make sure that we are engaging with this customer as part of the adoption success block. So we have here one of the campaigns we always suggest our customers to have is what we call our We Miss You campaign, where we are sending it automatically to customers if they haven't logged in to the product for 2 weeks. So that's another campaign that I would like to have as part of the adoption success block. So you can see that basically very quickly, I managed to go ahead to adoption success block, configured the scorecard that will enable me to see what are the goals and what is my status as a company in regards to those goals, leveraging the KPI functionality. I can see which customers list are actually taking part of the adoption success blocks by leveraging the segments and reports on those. And then leveraging success plays and campaigns, I can at any point in time go ahead and just leverage my engagement with the customer either through the CSMs or through the salespeople that are working with him. So now, besides sharing with us some questions, I'll be happy to get your feedback on the mini-series concept. And was it helpful for you? And whether we should continue. One of the things that we would like to make sure we are doing is following your feedback. As part of this poll, we will continue to have one mini-series to do additional drill down to the different success blocks that we are offering, as well as specific sessions that will be focusing on specific functionality that Totango offer. So one of the things that we discussed in the last sessions were life cycle statuses. We would like to make sure that customers are taking most value out of those and leveraging those in the right manner. So that's one of the things that we know we will be focusing on. So the first question is, did you like the mini-series concept? Was it helpful? I'll be happy if you will submit your answers to that. And then we will be able to leverage your capabilities, your feedback there. Next one, before we'll drill down to the content, we would like to know how was the pace of the webinars? Was it too fast? Was it too slow? Did you feel that there are areas in which we need to focus more on? And next, I want to focus a little bit on the content of the webinars. So was the content helpful? That's one of the things that I definitely want to know. We would like to know whether we should continue and do additional webinars like that. And lastly, do you believe that the concept of mini-series focusing on a specific area almost on a weekly basis is helpful, or do you believe that once a month is more than enough? I'm happy to see that based on the answers, most people feel like the pace was good and the series was helpful. As always, you will be able to find the content of today's webinar on Totango's website, as well as in an email that will be sent directly to all of you later today with links to the webinar recording, links to Totango website where you can find those best practices and some additional documentation on that. As always, feel free to reach out to me after the webinar if you would like to share your feedback or to ask any specific questions. Thank you, everybody.